The topic of our discussion today is recession. Are we in a recession or aren't we in a recession? Recent news says that we've had 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. In the past, that meant things weren't looking good. These days, who knows what that means, but one thing's for certain, you're probably worried about your retirement and your future income. On today's episode, we're going to be bringing in a very special guest, 20 years in the financial services industry, hosts a show on the BrightWealth network called Retirement of Your Dreams. And today we're going to be looking specifically at one of those episodes called the Retirement Income Framework. On the call with us today, we have Jason Bergquist, who's a Bright Advisor, opening up or running the Salt Lake City office for Bright Advisor, a national financial advisory company. Again, 20 years in the retirement industry and lots of experience working with folks just like you on your retirement. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the risk factors and how to avoid the risk factors that plague retirement income. Jason, are you on the call with us?
I am. I hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Jason, so glad to have you here today. So tell me, what is going on with the markets?
Man, it is crazy, right? As you said, are we in a recession? Do we call it a recession? But as you mentioned, it doesn't really matter what's going on. People are starting to worry, and now we need to address that worry and see what we can do to help them.
Yeah, we're getting calls through the Bright Advisor company at clients asking, the markets are down. What's happening? Should I be in cash? Should I invest? Should I keep going? There's a lot of uncertainty when you're in the stock market. But how do we avoid the risks of the stock market? I mean, this is intriguing what you're presenting with us here today, and I definitely want to break this down. Avoiding the risk factors. I think if anyone watching the show can figure out how to avoid the risk of the stock market, they're all in. So tell me, what's on the agenda for today's topic?
Well, I appreciate that. We are definitely talking to people, and they're definitely worried. But what I'm talking about today is specifically called the Retirement Income Framework. And really what that just means to you is we're going to talk about 5 different steps that you can take to make sure that you protect your money. And what are we protecting it from? Well, we need to figure out what the risk factors are. And really, when you look at the risk factors, there are a lot of different risk factors. And we can talk about all 10 or 12 of these that we've got here on the screen. But the main ones that we want to look at right now are 4 specific ones. So stock market, we've already brought up. We're going to talk about the stock market a little bit. We're going to talk about what we can do, how we can work with that. But there's other things that are really, really important to make sure that we're watching. Inflation is big right now, right? We just heard that the interest rates got bumped up again for the 3rd time this year. So what is that going to do to you, and how are you going to work that in? At the same time, the other major risk factor is what we all worry about. Taxes, right? How can we avoid the most amount of taxes possible? We know that taxes and death are the 2 things that you can't really avoid, but there are things we can do to help reduce that income tax, and we've got to know how we work that into it. And then the 4th one we're going to talk about today is longevity. And really, when you look at longevity, that is just the multiplier, right? The longer we live, the more we run into stock market ups and downs, the interest rates and where they're going, how we avoid and what taxes are going to come into play. And as we talked about today, crazy inflation going on.
Wow, so it occurs to me that there's a lot of factors that affect your retirement income, and people are not possibly even aware of these factors. And if you're not aware of what's eroding, if you're not aware that there's weeds in your garden, then they're just taking over your garden. So Jason, this is a very interesting topic. I'm super excited to be digging into this today on breaking it down. Tell me, how do we avoid these risk factors? You mentioned a framework, so it seems like you have a plan to avoid them and to capitalize on this.
I do. I definitely do. And we together, working as Bright, we can all have different aspects where we can go into these in detail. So today we're just going to touch on them briefly. But first off and foremost, the first one is identify. If your head is in the sand, right, like an ostrich, and you're just hoping that this is all going to work out for you, well, you're not really identifying the current problem. And maybe there isn't a problem, but maybe you haven't looked at your future. So the first step we need to do is identify, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. That's an interesting point because so many people have anxiety and fear around the stock market, and they love looking at the accounts when the markets are doing great, but when the markets are dropping or in turmoil, it's like they don't want to look. They start getting a pounding of their heart. They don't want to, they kind of recoil or back off of it. So I think that's a very important point, is not to have your head in the sand. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. So please continue.
No, that's exactly right? So you identify where you're currently at. So we're just saying, hey, what is your current financial situation? And a lot of us are okay at looking at our current financial situation, even if it's scary, right? But then to predict the future, that's what's hard. So identifying where we're at also includes, what are your goals? When do you want to retire? How much do you need to retire, right? If we can't identify those numbers, then we don't know what we're working towards. But as soon as we identify those numbers, we are able to move to number 2, which is protect, right? How do we get the most maximized guaranteed lifetime income? One of the things that I focus on most, over 20 plus years in the financial services industry, the most difficult thing is all these ups and downs in the market. Well, we definitely need to have a protected bucket of money, right? So if we know that when we are going into our retirement, that we're going to have fixed expenses. If you had a guaranteed fixed income that covered your fixed expenses, that's going to reduce your stress in your retirement years a lot.
I'm all in. Hey, if you can guarantee retirement income, that creates comfort and peace of mind and security, it seems like, for those individuals who are heading into their retirement. So that's I'm curious how you actually guarantee income, though, because the stock market is up and down, and that's the biggest problem, is when it's down, people are worried.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to go through, right? So the 3 main areas that we look at for your guaranteed income, well, Social Security is the main one, right? Most people know about it. Most people understand a little bit about it. You do need to understand it better, and you do need to work with somebody who understands your Social Security benefits and how you can maximize those benefits. So that's the first one. The second one is, do you have a pension, right? What are your other sources of income that are coming in when you get into retirement? Now, there's a third option, and a lot of people are really kind of pushing this one aside. But when you look at another way to have a third guaranteed income, that's either through a cash value life insurance play or a fixed income annuity that has an income play attached to it. And so when we add that into the mix, we're just looking at, okay, here are my fixed expenses. I need to make sure I have a guaranteed amount of money coming in to cover those expenses. And everything else above and beyond that, right, that's a whole different area of management. But if we know that our fixed income is covering our fixed expenses, we can work on the rest from there.
Okay, so let me see if I'm following you. This is exciting, actually. It sounds like what you're saying is that in stage 1, where you're identifying their goals and figuring out what their retirement expenses are going to be and desired goals for retirement, and then in step 2, you're actually constructing you called it a fixed income annuity or a cash value insurance policy to take over to generate enough income that exactly matches whatever their fixed expenses are going to be, so at least they're covered there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because what we're looking for, right, is that gap. We know that Social Security is not going to replace your income, right? It's going to replace about 40% of your income. So we've got to come up with other ways that are giving you fixed income to cover that gap. Yes.
Got it. Okay, great. So you're creating a plan in a safe environment to replace fixed expenses in the retirement scenario, and you're using specific products for that. And you do this with your clients, or you've been doing this with your clients in the past?
Yeah. One of my expertise, if you will, is looking at fixed indexed annuities. And if we have that income option that we're able to add to it, that gives us a guaranteed payout for the rest of our lives. And even if you choose the rest of yours and your spouse's life, no matter how long you live, that money's still coming in.
You know, it does kind of sound like the retirement of my dreams, you know, the one where there's no stress or no worry. I mean, it's someday each of us is going to wake up, and that's the day that we're done. We've made it, we've worked, we're retiring. Or hopefully each of us is going to make that. Hopefully those that are watching our video are going to arrive there. That's why we have you on the call, to help them. But that day happens when we retire. You wake up one morning, you stretch your arms, you grab your coffee or whatever, and you don't go to work. And hopefully you've got the retirement of your dreams set up where all your expenses are paid. If you don't, well, guess maybe you do have to go to work part-time or something. So
What you say there, Scott, is very, very important, because I talk to people every day, right? And I always ask them that. And I have received this answer many times, and it's sad to hear, right? Their retirement plan is 6 feet under, meaning that they're planning to work until they die, right?
yeah,
There's no joy and hope in that. And I
yeah,
think what I get out of this most is once we put this plan together, you can see that hope and that joy come back into their eyes and then say, oh, this is possible. I've
yeah.
never seen it laid out this way, to realize that it can happen.
Wow, I love it. I love it. That's awesome, man. Let's keep going. So identify, protect, and then did you say reduce?
Yeah, so step number 3 is going to reduce. And specifically, what we're talking about there is minimizing your income taxes. What a lot of
Okay.
people are not understanding properly is how to work with the taxes that it will be in the future, right? Because there's a lot of things we're not sure of. But what we can work on are the things that we do know. So there's a misconception that when you go into retirement, your taxes are going to be less. But once we're in retirement, we lose some of the benefits and the write-offs and the things that you get to subtract off of your income to reduce that. And then there is a complete misunderstanding about how Social Security is taxed. A lot of people are like, wait a minute, how can my Social Security be taxed? I already paid taxes. That's why I'm getting Social Security. And so understanding what causes your Social Security to be taxed, that there's different levels of your Social Security being taxed. And if you don't have the right money coming in, right, if we look back at number 2, if we don't have the right kind of funds flowing in on that guaranteed lifetime income, it could actually cause your Social Security to be taxed even higher. So we have to run through ways to focus on the future and minimizing those taxes. And that's not your CPA. Your CPA's job is to help you save taxes today. And they're not usually looking at how to save you taxes 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because they assume if they don't get you savings and taxes today, you're not asking for their help again next year. We have to
That
change that.
that's an interesting distinction. I hadn't thought of that, but you're actually looking forward 10, 20, 30 years, looking at what the potential future taxes are going to be, and you're putting mechanisms in place now and putting plans in place now to help save against that future tax. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
You know, I think if you ask anyone these days anyways, at least the general consensus around here at BrightWealth is that if I ask, are taxes going up or taxes going down in the future, most people say taxes are going up. And so if taxes are going up and you've got someone working with you to figure that out and how to mitigate that, I think that's a great step. I guess that's why it's called the retirement income framework, because it's one of those key components of your future retirement. I love it. So we're identifying our future goals and figuring out what's important to us and figuring out what our retirement income needs are going to be and what our fixed expenses are going to be. Then you're creating a plan to protect against that negative downside and create guaranteed income in retirement. You're reducing the tax consequence, and then you're investing. What's rule number or step number 3?
Yeah,
No,
number
4.
4. Yeah, step number 4 is investing, right? There is still areas where we are growing our surplus assets, right? There are fixed guarantees that we need, but
Yeah.
if we're looking for additional funds, right? Additional things that we can play with, right? We're talking about your fixed expenses matching your fixed income, but everybody wants a little more than that, right? That's the travel,
Yeah.
that's the drink, right? That's the beach, that's the family.
Vacations,
So there is
traveling, yeah.
exactly, right? Well, all things we want to do. Maybe you want to golf every day, right? Golf's expensive. You know, you turn
Charity.
your play days, right? When you're working, your play day is Saturday. When you retire, every day is play day, right? It's expensive. We think that we're gonna live on less, right, when we retire. But
You're
most
making me
people
want to
live,
retire.
we all do, right? We all want to get there. So yes, we still have to invest because we're still looking to grow some of those surplus assets. And that's where Bright comes into play, right? We have active managed accounts where we can actually make sure that people have those surplus funds managing in the right way. Did we talk about reducing and getting out of the stock market? Well, yeah, we all want to be out of the stock market when it's going down, but we want the advantage of taking the upside when those things are there. And you're not getting that out of your guaranteed side, right? That is just your protection. So you do need the investment side to where you can grow those surplus funds when we do have those market returns.
That's fantastic, and it's refreshing to hear that, because so many people that come on our show or that we talk to, they're like product pushers. You know, they've got one thing, and that's the thing that they're pushing, and that's the thing they want you to sign up in, and that thing solves all your problems, whatever that thing is. And it sounds like you've got a more comprehensive approach where you're figuring out a plan, you're taking a look at their Social Security and their other pension and other, you know, income in their retirement, you're reducing their taxes, you're creating guaranteed income, and you're working with their investments. I think you said actively traded portfolio. I might have to bring you back on to talk more about that. This is fascinating. I love it. What's step number 5? What's the final piece?
Final piece is managing it, right? You need to have somebody that you're working with to manage it. And the way that I describe this is if you are only and have only been working either through your employer, right? They're not helping you manage it. If you've gone to somebody who's helping you manage, they're probably only looking at one aspect, like Scott said, right? Here's the product that solves all your problems. Well, if someone's helping you manage that and they're helping you increase your assets, grow your assets, that's probably all they're doing. They're not doing the second half of making sure that you have that guaranteed income that's coming out. So maybe you need another opinion, right? Maybe you need a second advisor. Well, maybe you need to get rid of that advisor. I'm not saying whether you do or don't, right? But a lot of times when you go to the dentist, right? The dentist does so much work on your teeth and cleaning them and doing your cavities. But when he looks at certain problems, what does he do with you? Well, he sends you to the orthodontist, right? You need another opinion. You need a different type of look. So you have those that help you grow your assets, and then you have to have somebody that is helping you make sure that you never run out of money in your lifetime. And so you have to have someone who is actively managing that with you and looking at those options at least on an annual basis.
Jason, I can see why you have so many clients that love you and rave about you and want to work with you in retirement of your dreams. I definitely look forward to your forthcoming show on the network. Super excited to have you on the show with us today. I am wanting more. Where do I go to get more information? Can we find? I guess we could find you at brightadvisor.com and schedule an appointment, and literally just click on the box that says "Look for Jason Bergquist," and they could schedule an appointment and talk with you directly. Are you meeting with clients one-on-one yourself?
I am, and you schedule it just right through that website there. Get on that schedule. It has a calendar there, right? You pick what works for you. And we'll meet via Zoom wherever you are in the country, and we'll go through this framework and see where you're at and what you need.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for having you on the show today and for being on the show today and for sharing your knowledge and your financial wisdom with us and with our viewers. I'm hoping we can bring you back on the show. Does that sound like something that you'd be up for doing?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to get back on here and share with you what I've got and see how I can help whoever is looking for help.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that are looking for more from Jason right now, definitely go to brightadvisor.com, click on schedule a one-on-one planning session. I know there's a way to click and find his name exactly and schedule for him specifically. And I know the entire team understands his approach as well. So Jason, thanks again for being on the show. This is another episode of Breaking It Down. My name's Scott McLean. Remember, it's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make. And on the show, we don't have the answers, but we definitely dig and look for the questions. We'll see you on the next one.